Okay. Hello everyone. So my name is Evie. Um, I am with the Richmond Drivers Alliance. Um, I intended to hold a meeting today, but no one showed up. So I'm gonna just record the meeting because there's valuable information in it. And then I'll send this recording out to all the drivers. And we'll go from there. So, let's see, pop over to the agenda if I can find it real quick. Yeah, so first we're going to do a strategy overview, and we'll talk about means of increasing engagement, survey overview, lobby day. You know what? We're gonna shake it up. We're gonna do strategy overview, and then we'll do lobby day, and then we'll do the global day of strike. And then we'll talk about means of increasing engagement. Um, and then that'll be that. So I have a slideshow here. All right. So this presentation provides an overview of the Richmond Drivers Alliance, RDA, and its mission to address the challenges faced by rideshare drivers. It highlights the core problems in the industry and presents a timeline for RDA's strategy. So the Rideshare Drivers Alliance aims to overturn the systematic exploitation faced by rideshare drivers. The lack of bargaining power among individual drivers leads to professional and financial challenges, and the RDA is determined to address these issues at their core. So when I talk about bargaining power, I'm talking about um, our individual bargaining power against Uber and Lyft and any other rideshare companies, Empower, Userve, even though they're gig driving things like DoorDash, right? We don't have any bargaining power because they set the terms, and we don't get to negotiate. We get to agree or disagree with the terms. So, as individuals, that's our only recourse. But as a collective unit, we amplify each other's power. And so that's basically the core logic of union organizing, is that together we're stronger. Um, so analyzing the core problems, our challenges go beyond operational issues. They are fundamentally systemic. We face unjust wage policies, opaque surge pricing, and unreimbursed operational costs, reducing our earnings. Uh, we face a lack of transparency in corporate dealings, specifically with Lyft. Right now, Uber does show exactly how much they charge the customer versus how much they pay you, but you have to go like to their website to look at it. But Lyft doesn't share that info at all, and so we want that pay transparency. We want to be able to have those conversations with riders, right? There are minimal safety protocols, insufficient background checks, and a lack of support jeopardize our well-being. This is a big deal, you know. Uber drivers are like getting killed, getting robbed regularly, um, and so some people are calling for uh, like real ID or like verified identification for riders. And like rules against calling a ride for somebody else that hasn't had a background check, that kind of thing. Um, yeah, I would love to see like, Uber and Lyft take care of the families of people who are killed in the line of duty. Being a rideshare driver is more dangerous than being a police officer in the USA. We get killed at higher rates than police officers do. That's so voiceless terminations and a biased arbitration process leaves drivers at a disadvantage. We all know that we can just get deactivated for any old reason. If a customer complains, it's easier and cheaper for them to fire us than to deal with that customer making waves. So what we want, one of the things we're fighting for is, a seat at the table in terms of arbitration. We want rules governing that arbitration process, and we want to be involved in it. Um, we are denied basic worker benefits and protections because of our independent contractor status. Our equipment costs are not respected or accounted for. Um, my car is expensive. My commercial insurance is expensive. Um, I get an oil change every month. Um, I put 50,000 miles on my car, so 55,000 miles on my car since May. That's a brake job. I'm due for a brake job, like, so, um, this, analyzing the core problems, this slideshow or this portion of the slideshow comes from this list that I've made up. It sort of just goes over not everything, but almost everything, right? So no control over our rate card, which, how much do we get paid per mile, per wait time? What's the minimum fee? Here's some of the maintenance costs. If I'm missing any, please text me and let me know. No pay for on the way time and mileage, no pay for return time and mileage, no overtime pay, no ID checks, no hazard pay, no recording equipment reimbursement or subsidy. I know it's, $150 or whatever to get a camera in your car. So, as for the benefits, no sick pay, no paid time off, no real access to health insurance. Uber technically offers it, but it's bogus. And Uber ties it to your acceptance rate. So if you're not taking bottom dollar crappy rides, then you don't get to have insurance. And when you take those lower rides, you're lowering your pay already. So they make you take a pay cut in order to have the privilege to pay them. Bogus. So we can flesh this document out more together, but this is just some basic stuff. Back to the slideshow. Here's our roadmap to empowerment. Um, First, we're going to skill up and gain some knowledge. We're going to establish a foundation of knowledge and trust through studying labor movement history and strategy together, and more info forthcoming on study group sign-ups. I'm going to get with the DMV Drivers Alliance, which has 900 members in their group. I think about 100 paid members. And try to get some of our drivers together with their drivers to study some resources that are available to us. One thing I'd like to study, there's a book called From First Contact to First Contract by Bill Barry. He's a union organizer from Baltimore. He gave me permission to share a PDF version of his book with whoever wants it. I read it. It's great. And I think that studying it together would be good. Yeah, so we'll empower members through workshops on organizing tactics and strategies. Probably do this, once a month or once every 2 weeks or so, depending on capacity. And then we will put what we learned to the test and refine it with practice. We'll use feedback forms to, sort of fine tune those things. And I'll just show you some of our how to approach this how to approach drivers for recruitment document. Oh, this is the wrong one. Let's see. Recruitment canvas and guidelines. Yeah, so understanding the material conditions. So we want to be aware of the specific struggles and needs and challenges of rideshare drivers in general, and then we can, from there ask drivers specifically what they're most concerned with. We want to have an organizing attitude. And so that starts with believing that collective action is better than solitary complaints. We want to build rapport, start by asking about experiences and identifying shared experiences, active listening. Um, Once we've talked for a while, then we engage in the discussion. So, I mean, I won't go through all of this right now, but there are guidelines to how we engage with each other, right? So if we want to recruit other drivers at the airport, we can use some of these tactics, right? Um, and I pulled this or sort of borrowed it and edited it from a book called How to Be Secrets of a Successful Organizer by Labor Notes. And that is probably the second book that I would like us as a group to study. Let's see. And then we will apply all of that to our own democratic processes, and that will amplify our advocacy efforts. So, internal democratic structuring, this is a big deal. Um, this is something that I have realized is important through studying different labor movements and also from participating in the DMV Drivers Alliance group. No shade to them, but they're still working out how to structure things democratically, right? But ultimately, they right now their model is that they've got some paid staff organizers that are paid by the New Virginia majority, and so they're accountable primarily to their bosses and not to the people. I mean, they do a good job so far, mostly, but what we want to do things a little differently, right? We want um to build bottom up structures, right? So we will hold like elections and give people positions within the group, and then we'll be accountable to those positions. Then we can have recalls if anything else doesn't go through or doesn't work, excuse me. But we'll establish methods of voting together, whether we do it in the chat after a robust discussion or whether we only do it in-person paid meetings. But the main thing is that the drivers will be in control from the bottom up. And if we ever do hire staffers, those staffers will be employed by the union, by us as drivers, and not by some third party who, we have to determine whether or not they have our best interests at heart. We have our best interests at heart. Um, and so, yeah, and there's, again, books we can read and studies we can, get into. But there is, United Electric has their 21 constitution. I'm going to pause the screen share real quick just so I can access a document. Um, One sec. Hmm. Let me go somewhere else for it. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Resume share. Okay, so this is Constitution and bylaws by the United Electric. Um, this is what they use right now. So this sort of we won't go over this whole thing, but it's definitely worth looking at as a group. Um, So the old form of trade union organization is unable to defend effectively the interests and improve the conditions of wage earners. And so we, UE, form an organization which unites all workers on an industrial basis and rank and file control. That's us, rank and file, regardless of craft, age, sex, nationality, race, creed, or political beliefs, and pursue at all times a policy of aggressive struggle to improve our conditions. We pledge ourselves to labor unitedly for the principles herein set forth, to perpetuate our union and work concertedly with other labor organizations to bring about a higher standard of living of the workers. So, um, yeah, this is a treasure trove for us. We can use a lot of what their wisdom is over the decades that they've built from this. Excuse me, I'm getting a text. Um, so this goes over the duties of the different uh sections or the different roles within the group. Um, yeah, and again, we can go over this all more in detail. But what's important, is that the rank and file are in control of this union. Um, so okay, let's see. Yeah, okay. So our strategy includes harnessing community support, We want to educate and involve the public through outreach campaigns in our community spaces, excuse me, and online. So we'll do flyering campaigns. Excuse me, goodness gracious. We'll do outreach tables in public areas, and we'll do coordinated social media campaigns. We will build strength through collaborating with other drivers alliances, not just the DMV Drivers Alliance in the Nova area, but we want to connect with as many of them as we can. And here's a list I'm working on: Richmond, DMV, Charlotte, New Orleans, Massachusetts, New York, California, Austin, Texas, Boise, Miami, Tampa, Orlando, Chicago, Vancouver, Vegas, UK, and global, and San Diego, California. Right. So this is not by any means a complete list of the groups in the even just in the US that are doing this, but um the idea is to once we get some strength up under us, to reach out to these groups, right, and share tips and tricks and resources. um we'll also build solidarity with other labor movements. So this would look like us showing up when it's time for them to strike, joining them on picket lines or passing out flyers to our riders about other labor movements. And this will enhance our leverage in negotiations with rideshare companies. Essentially, we'll be building mass support that they can't deny. Um, so yeah, so we'll form alliances with external labor groups. This is called the social unionism model. Um, you can read more about the social unionism model in Joe Burns's book, Class Struggle Unionism. Um, but we'll fortify our movement with broader perspectives by connecting with these other groups. How are they dealing with corporate control and governmental regulations and all of that? So by deepening our solidarity with others, we open up opportunities for collaboration and for amplifying our own cause through their communication networks, right? So we can ask people to post our flyers, right? We can ask people, hey, on February 14th, do not rely on Uber and Lyft drivers for a ride. We will not be there to pick you up. Um, so we show up for them, they show up for us, we amplify them, they amplify us. And it allows us to sort of permeate our message and our mission into other wider social spaces, if that makes sense. And we can also receive strategic advice for workers' rights. I am a member of the Richmond Workers Assembly. It is a sort of pretty new within the last year. It's got still some kinks to work out, which so do we. So, but a workers' assembly is essentially a coalition of labor groups in a given city. And our Richmond Workers Assembly comes together once a month to troubleshoot and to do political education, and to share resources and stuff. And the Richmond Workers Assembly is part of a larger network of assemblies called the Southern Workers Assembly. I can go to their website here. And yeah, so the Southern Workers Assembly has, I think 11 different assemblies throughout the South. And so what I envision is within the next year or so, connecting to other drivers movements, especially in these southern cities, through the network of the SWA and um, through that, we'll be able to strengthen ourselves. And so, yeah, this Southern Workers Assembly, they've got some great resources. I imagine we'll be studying some of their resources together as well. Yeah, I mean, just look right. So, organizing a workers' movement in the South, building a local workers' assembly. Let's see, collective action, a workers' organizing toolkit. Let's check this out just for the moment, right? Oh, this is about COVID stuff. So, let's see. Yeah, so we'll tap into these networks, right, and become part of them and spread it that way. So we'll build a united front. I've already mentioned this with the other rideshare drivers. Let's see. Yeah, and so we'll do legislative and direct action. We recognize that the politicians are like not on our side. They do not serve our best interests. They work primarily for corporations, in our name. So we recognize that our legislative action will be limited by what they'll agree to and what they offer. Again, it goes back to bargaining power. Um, but the more public support we have, the more pressure we will be able to put on the legislators to get our movement, what it's asking for. So, um, direct action wise, we'll do targeted protests at places like the airport, like the Capitol building, like the courthouse. And we will participate in legislative campaigns such as Lobby Day. More info on that coming up. Negotiation and representation, right? So we will definitely be negotiating with politicians and with Uber and Lyft. And when we do that, we'll want to make sure that we are guided by whoever our representative is, will be from among us as drivers. It won't be someone who isn't even a driver. Um, they'll be democratically elected to represent us from within. They'll be guided by our shared principles. And they will be focused on our members' needs and wishes. And we'll remember that bargaining power is key. So I love this little cartoon here. It just shows, easy peasy what the logic is. So right now we don't have any money in our coffers. Actually, I think we don't even have any coffers. But some the flyers and things that I've printed so far for spreading awareness and things like that were donated by the nonprofit organization Advocates of Change, which I work for. Um, Advocates' mission is to uplift and nurture our society and ecosystems by empowering our peers through education, inclusive action, music, and the arts. So, yeah, but we will need to be financially independent. Advocates of Change is, it's a grassroots group. It doesn't have funding really of its own, um, like outside of what it makes off selling art and stuff. So in order to develop financial independence, we will need to do things like fundraisers, and we will also need to have dues. So the in that United Electric Constitution that I shared with y'all a little bit ago, it lays out what their dues paying process is. It's 1.5 hours of wages per month. And so you could say that we probably make 15 or 16 bucks an hour, hopefully, after all of our expenses are accounted for. And so it would be like net pay, that we would go on. And so if we make 15, 16 an hour, then about half, then that we would end up making about 20, 23, 24 would be our monthly dues. So if we have 100 people paying 2,400 bucks, $24 a month, that's a chunk. We can do stuff with that. We don't have 100 members yet. But yeah, so we'll need to set up a bank account and set up, we'll have to take care of all of that sort of administrative stuff. And that's something that I'm not prepared to do solo. So I'll need to develop a core group of drivers. So here's a timeline and some next steps. First year, we'll focus on, and I guess we're about halfway through our first year already. We'll focus on foundational activities, building our membership base, establishing study groups, initiating community outreach. We'll start campaigns for legal reforms and develop a comprehensive survey. We will work on combating deactivation. So on the deactivation front, we haven't done any of those ourselves yet, but the DMV Drivers Group has successfully helped a few people combat unjust deactivations. So we'll be able to get with them and get some of their expertise and apply it down here. So on that note, if y'all know anybody who has been unjustly deactivated, send them my way and we will see what we can do to help. Year two, we will expand our alliances with other drivers groups and other labor unions. We'll hold regular peaceful demonstrations and initiate dialogue with legislators and rideshare companies. We'll do training programs for negotiation, leadership, legal processes, canvassing. Flyering. Year three will aim to achieve legislative reform, strengthening our position significantly. We will leverage collective power for negotiations with rideshare companies, demand transparency and fair arbitration mechanisms. I want to demand more than that. I want to demand guaranteed wages. I want to demand that um all kinds of stuff. Like we deserve benefits. We just do, so our immediate next steps are join our signal chat. Please do. Let me see if I can pull up the link to it. Group link. Hmm. Okay, so you guys aren't going to be able to copy this or anything. Um, yeah, so I'll send out, you know, we'll get there. Um, okay, fill out our survey. Help us represent you better by completing a detailed driver survey. I can pop that real quick. Oops. Yeah, so I've got this survey made up. It might be a little too long. It's a lot. But I'll explain the logic behind it. Actually, I put the logics behind it within each section. So will be used to improve driver conditions and our collective organizing efforts. We'll collect demographic info on how much you work, how satisfied you are with your pay, and here's some of those reasons, some of those issues. Click click those. Tell us which companies you work for. Um, Social and political affiliations. This seems like it's something weird to ask about, but it's related to our social unionism strategy, right? So, we're asking for, are you a member of any social justice organizations, churches, synagogues, mosques? What are your hobbies or interest groups, artistic groups, amateur sports leagues, political movements or parties or caucuses, labor unions, veterans groups? Um, so the idea is to sort of catalog how we're all plugged into our various communities, our various sub communities, and then work together to determine how to bring our drivers movement into each of our little sub communities, right? Because the people in my little live music niche music community, sometimes they take Ubers. Most of them are not drivers, but they are riders, right? So I can talk to them and say, hey, can y'all take this rider survey? And the rider survey that we have is geared toward asking how satisfied they are, asking what their level of knowledge is about, like, how these companies exploit us, and then asking whether they are interested in helping us in any way. um, and so we ask what social justice causes are the most important: workers' rights, racial and ethnic justice, and international solidarity, women's rights, LGBT, bodily autonomy, disability, environmental, healthcare, how all of this, right? Um, Anti-war is something I'm real big on, and that kind of goes with international solidarity, right? So these are all of these, like, issues in society that hurt people that we love. There are opportunities for us to get involved, right? There are opportunities for us to connect our struggles to these other struggles. Um, and so by sort of collecting information from drivers on what our deepest concerns are, that will sort of inform how we approach our future action. Um, so again, this is a long survey, but it's good. It's good data for us to have. So we'll be asking what people's capacity is for time commitment, and then we'll be asking what people are most interested in learning about or participating in. So study groups, canvassing, outreach, planning strike strategies, graphic design, social media management, and outreach campaigns. Let me fix that G. Skills and empowerment workshops, unfair deactivation defense and response, flyering campaigns, learning how to talk to riders, friends, and family about our labor movement, phone banking, helping other drivers, um, or help? What do you need help with incorporating as an LLC to sort of get your tax stuff straight? And then what time of day is best for Zoom meetings? Um, so that's the survey. Join our contact list. As part of the survey. Prepare to attend online and in-person study and training sessions. Prepare for Lobby Day. Can you join us? Prepare for Global Day of Strike against Uber and Lyft. So that is February 14th, Valentine's Day. We're gonna shut down. We're gonna try to get as many Richmond drivers as possible between now. We've got 1 month to get as many Richmond drivers as possible to agree to strike at the airport on Valentine's Day. Um, and so what we need to do then is meet up before then and make some rally signs, make some protest signs, get some social media awareness out there about it, um, and connect with these other groups online, hopefully too. These are other drivers groups, and like the rideshare professor, he's been talking about the global day of strike as well. So um yeah, and then please also invite all the drivers that you know to join our group. Um, in conclusion, our pathway forward is not just about temporary fixes, but about revolutionizing the rideshare landscape. We will address immediate concerns and restructure our power dynamics for equitable and lasting change. We hope people will engage and stay informed and actively participate. And through that active participation, we want to transition our voices from being isolated, and lacking bargaining power to a resonant and unified force to be reckoned with. We want to be able to demand things and have those demands met. That's what building bargaining power is. So thank you for your time. That concludes the strategy and overview. So we'll go ahead and get into lobby day. Um, so yesterday, I attended a DMV Drivers Alliance meeting in Alexandria, Virginia, where we went over some of the more particulars. Um, it'll be on on January 15th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the State Capitol building. But actually, we will be meeting at 9 a.m. at the Convention Center parking deck, I think at the top level. And so there's 45 drivers are coming down from the DMV Drivers Alliance on a bus. And so we'll be meeting with them at the convention center, and doing a little bit of pre-planning and so on. Let's see. The main goals of the lobby day are to educate local representatives and politicians about the working conditions of Uber and Lyft drivers. You know what? I've been using other language elsewhere. Really, it's put them on notice, right? On notice, on record. Because we don't want to assume that the reason they're not helping us is because we don't know. It's safer and more logical and more historically grounded to assume that they're not helping us because that's not their job. Their job is to help corporations. So we will be basically just, this is sort of an opening salvo. We will be putting them on notice and saying these are messed up working conditions, and this is what we need you to do to change it. So we will be pressuring Virginia government officials to pass a bill which will study Uber and Lyft driver incomes in Virginia. The proposed study bill, the language has been drafted but not shared with us so far. It was drafted by the New Virginia majority. I'm not a big fan of, the fact that we didn't get to participate in the crafting of this study bill. And at yesterday's meeting, I insisted that at our next, when we craft our own legislation, or when we craft like the actual drivers legislation, that the drivers do it. And this is when I talked earlier about democratic unionism. This is the exact kind of thing I mean. We should be in control of what we're sending out to the politicians. So the study bill will collect data on drivers' income, expenses, fares, hours worked, and other financial information to analyze take-home pay. This data is meant to provide an accurate picture of driver organizing conditions since Uber and Lyft do not share comprehensive pay data. Senator Salim and Delegate Lopez have already submitted the language for the bill. Excuse me, have already submitted the talking points to their people that craft the bills. Lobby day will involve asking politicians to commit to voting yes on this specific bill once it is formally introduced. The study findings will help us, we'll be able to point to the findings of this study to show, hey, this is concrete proof that our situation is messed up. This is what we need from y'all to fix it. Our introductory program will be presented by the DMV Drivers Alliance at the Convention Center parking deck. From there, we will march to the Capitol holding signs for issues like pay transparency. Some of us will split into teams to meet with specific politicians in their offices. I signed up to do this. I'm the only one from Richmond that did sign up. I tried to get some other folks too, but I was only able to canvass at the airport like 3 times. In the weeks between like December 16th and 27th. I had to go out of town on the 27th. Yeah, so we will split into teams and meet with specific politicians based on their delegate areas, and we'll tell personal work stories and conditions. Let's see, transportation and lunches will be provided by the bus. I told them to reserve between like 6 and 10 spots for Richmond drivers. I know that none of us registered and we missed the registration deadline, so hopefully we'll get included in that. But at the very least, I do want us to like go and meet with these DMV drivers and rub shoulders and whatnot. Let's see, our tasks between now and then. Well, so I originally made this slideshow for 2 weeks ago. But yeah, so I've made a social media post. I'll make some more. Let's see, we hopefully some folks will respond to this and we'll be able to get together and make some rally signs. I don't think we'll have enough time to print t-shirts, hats, or other items with our logo. It's funny, the group, the DMV Drivers Alliance, they changed their name from the ACE Collaborative DMV Drivers Group to DMV Drivers Alliance, but they're gonna all be wearing their old shirts that say ACE Collaborative on them, and it's like a specific teal color. I'm not married to the idea of a teal colored shirt, but if we were to put our logo on a shirt, it would make sense, I think, to use that same color so that we'll be identifiable, at least, in a group with those folks, even though our logo will be different. Let's see, coordinate carpooling. I guess since we're meeting, originally we were going to meet at a hotel, so I was like, we'll have to coordinate carpooling, but we're literally going to a parking deck, so we can take that one off. That's all for lobby day. Here is a slideshow for means of increasing engagement. Let's see. I'll show the document first because it's a little bit more comprehensive. But yeah, so our means of increasing engagement are social events, town halls, engaging at public events, community outreach, including door to door, utilizing in ride time, and digital and physical campaigning. So I guess we already talked about physical campaigning would be community outreach. But yeah, so social events would be, us throwing a drivers get together, or even just like a drivers and their families or drivers and riders, anybody who wants to show up. So, if we rent some sort of a meeting space, and I don't know, this is where I'm murky on, I would need some help developing those programs that we'll use. But basically one of our problems is that we're not connected to each other very well. We don't share a shop floor. So we have to go out of our way basically to make opportunities for us to get to know each other and mingle and stuff. We can host a town hall. to which the aim of which would be to offer a platform of for voices of drivers, riders, and stakeholders. So I guess that would be, you know, not stakeholders in the corporation, right? But like people who are invested in our movement. So that would be, other labor groups who aren't necessarily riders, but who stand with us because it strategically helps them. Public events engagement. Um, so it'd be like public gathering spaces. We could set up a table in a park or anything like that. Anywhere we can go to a public event. I mentioned earlier my nonprofit Advocates of Change. We'd go to concerts and set up tables to engage with people. Um, Community outreach, including door to door. So this would include, door knocking at local businesses or even going to like religious places, churches, mosques, synagogues, and asking them if they're willing to support our movement. Um, Utilizing in ride time. This one is interesting. It's a little controversial. If you think about, um, it's tricky to you can't just tell every rider everything. Some riders are cool, some riders are receptive and are like pro working class and against exploitation, right, and against oppression and against Uber and Lyft. So what we want to do is develop a method of determining who is and isn't safe to talk to. um and so how are we utilizing our in ride time with riders to bring them up to speed about our work. um and so we can definitely get more into that. I brought it up. I went to a Southern Workers Assembly labor conference in November in Charlotte, North Carolina. um and I brought up this idea of using in-ride time to talk to other workers about organizing issues. And some folks from an Amazon union in Atlanta were like, "Hey, actually, that works." Like the Teamsters union that was trying to help organize Uber, or excuse me, Amazon factory workers, they got jobs as Uber and Lyft drivers with the express intention of like hanging around near Amazon so they could pick up Amazon workers and then have a chance to talk to them in the car for 10 minutes about organizing. And they had success, right? There is an Amazon union in Atlanta now because of that work. And so it can be done, right? If we think, well, we don't want to risk deactivation, no, we don't. But that just means we need to prepare to be able to determine who's safe to talk to about that, rider wise. And then digital campaigning, we've did set up a social media, Instagram and a Facebook. But I'm not like putting out regular content or anything. It's kind of just a lot for one person to figure to do. And there's also not a whole lot going on right now. But once we have more events and more people involved, what I'd like is for there to be like a social media team, a committee who's accountable to for posting content. So I know I went over this whole document instead of the slideshow, but I'll open that up anyway. Um, let's see. This is really just everything I already put. All unions united. This is the way. Um, oh yeah, and sort of public events. This could also be, like going to town halls or like actual town halls instead of like hosting our own town hall. Go into like city council meetings and things like that. Um, yeah, so this sort of just talks about strategies that we as a group will use to build mass support because that's our basic 3-year strategy, is to build mass support through every available means. So through our personal lives, through our social lives, through legislative action, through direct action, through social media campaigns, through flyering, canvassing, outreach. all of that. There's really no holds barred as far as tactics, right? Whatever our strategy will be to try to connect with everyone that we can in a meaningful way, to raise their awareness about our issues, and to help them understand how our issues affect their issues. Um, we want to be able to call on people. We want to build a database, and maybe we'll have a newsletter or something like that. We'll want to get oh yeah, rider surveys. This is something I wanted to touch on. Um, okay, so I haven't made the survey yet from it. Um, but sort of the same starts with demographics. So how often do you use rideshare? For what reasons? Do you perceive it to be a fair price? What percentage do you think riders make? What do you think we should make? Um, let's see. So the survey is sort of designed to inform people as it asks people what their knowledge level is. Um, yeah. So, and maybe this is a little bit long. I think I could probably take out some of the sensory stuff. I put this in here so that we can show to the riders that we care as drivers about their sensory experience, about their lived experience in our car, and this would sort of give us a gauge. But I don't know if it's strictly, maybe it's too much. Um, so here we're asking people, do they think that drivers should have the right to benefits? Would they support legislation? Would they be interested in volunteering with us or supporting a rideshare drivers movement? Um, and then some additional comments down here. Reminder for organizers. Um, yeah, so okay. Oh, let me get back to this agenda. See what time. See org. Bobby Day. Okay, let's see. Global Day of Solidarity for Uber and Lyft. This is the main big thing. On Valentine's Day, and so if you just search global protest Uber and Lyft Valentine's Day, you'll see Torkel, you'll see the rideshare professor has put out a couple videos on it. There is some discussion on Reddit about it. Um, so I didn't prepare a slideshow yet for the Global Day of Strike for Solidarity. But I was trying to make some art earlier for the posters, and we're not there yet. Uh, this one's kind of cool though. It's just that doesn't really look like any of our cars. Um, yeah, so as soon as we get lobby day out of the way, we're really going to try to hit hard on this global day of solidarity on Valentine's Day. Um, we need to get as many Richmond drivers as possible to participate in it. I'd like to try to get about 50 of us, right? This would be our first action. Um, and we'll protest at the airport. And if we maybe we'll like drive, do like a caravan, do a few loops through the airport or something like that, um, and get some media coverage out there. Yeah, so this is the main thing that I really need help with from y'all in the immediate. If you please reach out to me if you can offer any assistance in this. We want to get some social media posts out. And then we want to like sort of systematize how we're sharing them. Like at least every 2 or 3 days, we'll probably ask people to share it again up until. And we'll want to canvas at the airport at least once a week. Hopefully, two different groups canvassing at least once a week at the airport. We really want to try to get this campaign to go as far as we can. Um, and so maybe we'll do flyers. Yeah, so hopefully this will sort of get people on the map, get us on the map, if people see that we're a group and see that we're active, they'll join up, Um, and so yeah, so February 14th, the goal is shut down our app all day. We're just not working. We're just not doing it. But we'll also want to stage like a visible protest. And try to get some media coverage of it as well. I've got some contacts, some media contacts from tenant union organizing that I can hopefully tap into. Um, so that's all I got for you right now. Um, yeah, I really hope that this video finds everyone well. See if I can. Oh, okay. So I think I'm just going to upload this to the internet and send people a link to it for viewing. Um, Thank you for your time. I really appreciate y'all. I feel like if I missed anything, I'll go ahead and say, follow us on Facebook, Richmond Drivers Alliance. Follow us on Instagram at Richmond Drivers Alliance. Our email address is richmonddriversalliance@gmail.com. So far, I'm the only sort of like core organizer in this group. But there have been a handful of people who've expressed interest, or curiosity at least. So hopefully this will give you at least a little bit of an overview. And Yeah, hopefully we can join up together. I would love to get this Richmond Drivers Alliance movement really grooving. Thank you all so much for your time. Make it stop share. Boom. Okay.